welcome back to the Content Matters podcast. I am very happy to have with me today Moni Oloyede, and she is the Director of Marketing Infrastructure at Fidelis Cybersecurity. Hope I said Fidelis right. That sounded like the right way to say it.
You got both right.
Yeah, that's perfect. So I was first introduced to Moni through the Spring Forum, the B2B Marketing Prof Spring Forum. Moni did a really great session on marketing attribution, and I just knew she was someone that I wanted to get on the podcast to talk more about everything from marketing operations to content strategy and all the stuff in between. So I think it's going to be a great talk today. So thanks, Moni, for joining us.
Thanks, Barb, for having me. Appreciate it being here.
It's going to be great. I know it is. So, okay, let's start here. There are so many tools and technologies that you can use in marketing today. And you said yourself the complexity, and I know personally as well, that it can be so overwhelming. And you have said that you need to simplify. So when you say that, what do you mean and how do you do it?
Sure. So what I mean by that is, like, a lot of the times marketers buy tools to solve business problems without really realizing kind of what they have in-house and not examining their marketing and their marketing issues. So attribution is a common thing, right? Like, I want to track ROI, so let me buy a tool that'll help me do that, instead of just evaluating what their goals are actually as a marketing department. A lot of times people don't realize, like, they're tracking business goals and not marketing goals. So, like, what I mean by that is, like, ROI is a business metric. That's what the company wants to track. It's not a marketing specific metric to track, right? So you're going to fail in doing that because you need the business in order to help you track ROI, right? It's a lot of metrics outside of marketing that you need in order to properly do that. You're going to need some financial information. You're probably going to need something from product, sales, right? A lot of different departments. And when marketing tries to track ROI, they often fail because they don't have the information, the data, the entire tool set they need in order to do it. So instead of, just buying tools over and over and over again, trying to solve these problems that are business problems, let's evaluate what's really marketing's responsibility, and then evaluate from there. If you have a marketing problem, the tool will normally work. If you have a business problem, it's probably going to fail.
Sounds like you know a lot about marketing operations. What kind of led you down this path? What interested you to get started in it?
It's so funny. Like, a lot of marketing operations people, I tripped and fell into it. So I didn't wake up one day and went, I want to do marketing operations.
Yeah.
I had my first job out of college was with a cybersecurity company, actually, that was an early adopter of Eloqua. So Eloqua is a marketing automation platform. This was back in 2007. And I was interning there, and then I got a job in the marketing department doing events. And the woman who was managing Eloqua at the time, the tool, left, and I was the only person who was logged in, who even knew what it looked like. And they're like, do you want to do this? And I was like, sure, why not? I got tired of doing events, so might as well try something new, and been doing it ever since.
So lots of technology then, for sure.
It's been funny. I mean, it's been a wild ride watching the space grow to what it is right now. I mean, I think Scott Brinker, like, I can't remember the year, I want to say 05, 06, something like that, his MarTech super graphic, he had a super graphic, like all the tools and technologies in the space, and there was like 150 on the graph in like 2005 or something like that, and cut to, I think, 2020, and there's like 3,000 or something like that.
Yeah, and I think the one that just came out, there's over 9,000 on it. I think I was saying that right. I was like, holy crap! Like, no wonder companies get confused, or marketers get confused on what tools to use and how to make them all work and play together.
Absolutely.
So obviously you've seen all of that then. So when you think of a MarTech stack, like, it's evolved a lot. What do you kind of see as the core components that should really, and I know maybe that it's different for every company, obviously, but are there certain ones that you think are really core to any marketing stack?
Normally, the foundation of a marketing stack is a marketing automation platform for the size of the company that can also be like an email tool. Those two things kind of get interchangeable.
Yeah.
And a CRM, right? So those are two kind of core of any marketing stack, and you kind of add on from there. And on the new sort of thing that's coming in is coming to like the core of the stack is some sort of data management
Hmm.
tool is now coming onto it too as well, because there's so many sources of data that there's no one tool that can handle it all. So I'm seeing a lot of CDPs or some kind of data management system on top of that to help you manage the data.
Yeah, definitely hearing a lot about the content, the customer data platforms, like just
Mhm.
and working with some companies who sell them, and it's just what they can do and how they can bring all that technology together is really amazing.
It's exciting. I think that's been one of the things that I've seen over the last 15 years has been a major struggle. Obviously, we all talk about data and how, it's hard to manage and hard to keep clean and what you need in order to actually serve the customer properly. So I'm excited for that. I think it's going to be a game changer.
Yeah, I agree. So the other side, so there's the technology on the one side of marketing, and then on the other side is the strategy, the content strategy, the communications.
Mhm.
And what's interesting is sometimes you don't see the two talk together, but
Mm-mm.
you have said, and you said this in your session, you need to. So how do you make, why don't they, first of all, and then
Mhm.
how do you make that work, and what does that mean at all?
Yeah, I mean, it's like the old adage of left brain, right brain, right?
Hmm.
Like the technology is left brain and the creative is the right brain. And it's hard to find someone who embodies both of them well, right? You normally have a technologist who's good at the technology and they put all the integrations together and they can think, 3 or 4 steps ahead about, if you do this, this is what this is going to fail, and if you do that, this is going to go wrong, and very process oriented people. And then you have the creatives who don't know anything about the tech, don't care, just want it to work, send my email out, get my landing page out there, get my
Yeah.
webinar out there. That's all I care about. And get these leads in the door. But I put the onus on the technologists. When I speak about, melding marketing and the tech together, I say marketing has to be right. When it's in the marketing department, it's Mar Tech.
Yeah.
In marketing, like I always say and try to hammer in a lot of my presentations and when I talk is that marketing is communicating value to a desired audience. That's what our job is, what we're supposed to do. And a lot of people on the technology side, I've heard, especially if you work for a tech company, I've heard people say, I don't know what my company does. It's not a good place to be if
Yeah.
you're a technologist or in a marketing department, period. You have to know what your company does because you have to know how to speak to the audience properly and effectively. That's your job. I don't care what part of marketing that department that you're in. I don't care if you never aren't even customer facing, it doesn't matter. You do something that involves speaking to the customer in some way. So you need to know what your company does. You need to know how to communicate it well to the audience. Because if you're a if you have a campaign or a webinar or whatever you're doing in outreach, if it's not effectively communicating, it's failing. I don't care how well it's set up or programmed or any of that stuff. It doesn't
Right.
matter. Marketing has to lead and marketing has to do its job because if marketing isn't working effectively, the whole thing fails.
So how do you get them kind of to see that other side? Because I would question whether or not like a CMO or a VP of marketing really cares if the marketing technologists understand. Like, do you think, have you ever seen situations where that's true?
Well, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely, 100%. I mean, I think it's more common than not, actually.
Hmm.
Like I said, the CMO just cares about, getting the leads in the door and tracking and being able to show, ROI or whatever the
Yep.
onus is on them to prove their value,
Yep.
which is a whole other topic of why things fail. But yes, the CMO is blind to that, and it's the issue. I think I would say is if I were to coach a CMO or say this is what you need to work on, you need to work on making sure that your entire department has communication skills, one-on-one, just basic, just being able to effectively communicate back and forth because our whole audience is our external audience. So our prospects, our customers, our internal audience, sales, the executive team. And normally when marketing has an issue or is quote unquote failing, they have a communication problem, not communicating effectively internally or externally somewhere. There's a breakdown somewhere or
Yep.
someone's not understanding. So I think that the onus is on the CMO to make sure that one, people can just communicate well on the basic level and that the whole team can communicate effectively internally and externally. A lot of times the technologists are stuck in the corner somewhere. They're not facing anybody. They just get dealt instructions on what to do and what to set up, and they're left to their own devices. And that's a recipe for a disaster, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think one area where you kind of see it, maybe it's a little bit better, would be with account-based marketing. It seems
Mm-hmm.
like I've seen lots of webinars or talks from people who lead the account-based marketing strategies, who seem to understand the strategy and the technology really
Mm-hmm.
well. But I've never actually seen it too much in other areas. So it's kind of
Yeah,
interesting.
it is interesting. I think account-based marketing, it forces you to focus, right?
Yeah.
Like you have to get very, very focused on the audience and what you're communicating to them and what you're offering to them. So it helps in that way. You're not trying to boil the ocean with traditional demand gen, which is just like build it and they will come mentality,
Yeah.
which doesn't really help. But yeah, I think account-based marketing definitely forces the marketer to focus for sure.
Yeah. And do you think that the people who are doing the strategy and maybe the writing side of content and the communications, what do you think they need to do to understand the technology?
So it's like very flat when it comes to like a content person and then the technologist, right? It's like here's my copy, you just go implement it, or again, put it on the landing page, put it on the website, put it in the email, and walk away. There's really not a conversation of what the goal is ultimately, because it's assumed, and that's assumption makes an ass out of you and me. So it's assumed about what they're supposed to be doing, right? It's
Yep.
just like, I
Yep.
want to get leads, or I want to get this, but that's not the goal of every email or every landing page or every whatever the thing is, right?
Yeah.
It's not always leads. Sometimes you're just trying to get people to be aware that you
Yep.
exist. That's a goal and that's a win. They didn't know about me, now they know about me. That's a win in a marketing sense. We don't
Yep.
measure things like that. It's always something tangible, but the things that matter are the intangibles, right?
Yeah.
The word of mouth, the awareness, right? Like those are the things that like really move the needle, but we don't have the patience for that in this day and age. We can't track it, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, sorry, I cut you off.
No, no, sorry. But that's interesting, because that's a lot of what your session was about at the B2B forum, was that marketing attribution isn't just about ROI.
Mhm.
And there are those intangible things that are important to track and measure. Like, so if how do you make them understand that we need to kind of do this, like ROI, like you said, ROI is not a, it's not a metric. It's something you have to get out of everything else.
Correct. And you got to work backwards into your point, your last question about like how can the content marketer help, right? That also goes to the goal. So like when the content marketer is writing a piece of content, if they get the writing for a lead conversion and writing for awareness is different. Right? Like
Yeah.
what I'm trying to get you to do is different. So everything
Hmm.
always comes back to the goals. Like what are we trying to accomplish here, and getting on the same page with that. And also meeting people where they're at and bringing them along, right? I think we always try to, marketers want to boil the ocean with these campaigns. This one campaign is supposed to make someone aware, get them educated, convert them, and then turn them into $1 million. This is like
Yeah.
that. No, it doesn't work like that at
That
all.
would be so cool if it worked like that, though, right?
We would all be rich and we would all walk away right now. That worked.
Yeah.
And it doesn't. So it's like you have to meet people where they're at and communicate them based on with them on that. So it's very, it's on the technologist and the content person to work together to go, hey, the goal is brand awareness. That's it for this one campaign. Based on that and my audience and where they're at and what they know about us existing, what kind of content works here, how to write it, how to talk, and what person, what do we know about them in order to get them to move and talk to their emotions, right? That's the other thing, is communicate to people's emotions. That's how they
Yeah.
move. They don't work on logic. So yeah, those are important.
So it's really you're mapping a journey inside of a journey stage. So I know that,
Correct.
and of course too, that the buyer's journey isn't linear,
Correct.
but when you're mapping it out and you're trying to figure out the content and the approach, you need to think of it that way, at least to
Correct.
start to figure out how the pieces fit together. But what you're describing is that inside, if so, say if my goal right now is to build awareness, I'm actually building a journey inside the awareness stage of the buyer's journey.
Exactly. 100%. Right.
Yeah.
That is, you just hit it on the head. It's a journey within a journey. because that's how people actually move. And they're not going to go on some linear, like in 3 months, I did this and then I did this.
Yeah.
And anyone who's ever like studied analytics on any level or done any data science knows that if you're actually mapping out how a buyer moves, they don't like, I don't know how many times I've like looked at data and seen people just come directly to the website and do the thing, like the schedule a demo or a free trial or whatever. Now, I know that's not the first time I've ever touched them. I know that's not the first time I've gotten an impression from them. They've engaged in some other way. It's just not tracked,
Yeah.
right? They know the game. People know what to do, right? They know how this stuff works. So they know when they submit their email, they're going to get barraged. They know when they fill out the form, they know what's going on. So they don't do it. And then, they may talk to a colleague or somebody else. That person may come do the thing, you know what I mean? Leave, go back. They talk to somebody else. They interact with something, you know what I mean? Like it's a whole messy, jumbled thing, especially in B2B that involves multiple people within the organization. So just meet people where they're at, map the journey within the journey, and then see what touch points arise to then move the needle. That's the best you can do.
Yeah. It's a good way to think about it. It's a good kind of back to basics, think about how that kind of needs to work, and then add the pieces together as you go along.
As you go along. It's the best you can do. And it takes time, and people need to give themselves time, right? That's the other big key to that thing. While the reason why I also kind of like the way that I approach attribution is it allows you to collect metrics and produce results while you're also learning and optimizing, right? You don't have to have it all figured out in one shot, right? This allows you to go, okay, for this piece here in the beginning, they do this and this. All right, now if they do this and this, what's the next logical thing to get them to the next step? And I go back and optimize it, my first step based on what I learned in the second step, and I can move on and on and on and on. And I'm still tracking and producing results and KPIs, even though I'm still trying to figure it out while I'm flying the plane.
Agile methodology.
Exactly.
Yeah. So how you're like a marketing technologist, but you're also marketing strategy. Like everything you're talking about is the marketing strategy. How did you get to do both of them?
I was a technologist for the longest, and I was consulting, and I was, in-house, and I've been doing it for years. And I just kept seeing the same problem. It was the same thing over and over and over again. It's like, why is this failing every time? I can't figure it out. So it's like, no matter how good I build it, no matter how much, integrations I have, and know how perfect this is set up and how much information I have, I'm running into the same issue every time. And it just kept hitting my head against the wall. I'm like, why is this not working? And I was like, I went back to the marketing. I just went back to the marketing. It was like, this isn't communicated well. That's what the problem is not being done properly. And I went back and I got my master's in marketing, and I focused on studying communication. And I realized that we as marketers are terrible communicators, and we're terrible listeners. We don't listen with empathy, which is the core of communication. It's not talking, it's listening.
Yeah.
Actually, we don't listen to our customers. And I can say that and confidently, because if you listen to your customers, you wouldn't have forms with 15 fields on them. You wouldn't have pop-ups. You wouldn't do some of these things because they inhibit the customer experience. It's like, you don't listen very well.
Yeah, there's a whole idea around being customer obsessed that I think a lot of people still need to learn a lot about. And the problem is, well, we say that customers change constantly, but I question if they do or not. If it's more, they're really not that different from what they've always been. It's just that we're, as marketers, getting all this technology thrown at us and all these new strategies, and we think, oh my God, that's what the customer must want. I've got to do that. And we're always chasing shiny new things instead of saying, what is it? What do you really want? What are you trying to do? And how do I make that happen for you?
How do I make that happen? Just ask people what they want and give it to them. It's not that difficult.
Yeah.
But and a lot of it is it's on the business. The business puts a lot of pressure on the marketing department, right? It had every place, right? It's just like, you want this money, you got to go out and prove why you need this money and show me the return. And it's little investment, right? You have to invest over time to get the return, and we don't allow that in today's society. Like, you got to give it to me now, and it's hurting our overall marketing.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree 100%. So are there a lot of women marketing technologists? Because that's a role that I would have kind of perceived as being male dominated.
It is growing, as a matter of fact. And I actually just saw a headline yesterday that today, I don't know for the first time since when, but there are more women CEOs than men CEOs.
Really?
CMOs, more women CMOs than men CMOs. But yeah, the women in the technology space, marketing technology space is growing. Even on the data science side, that's growing too as well. I've been in the community a long, long time. Um, it's been traditionally female dominated. There are definitely strong men in the field for sure, especially on the technology side. But
Yeah.
I see the growth is happening on in the female side, which is super, super exciting for me.
I have interviewed some really great female CMOs, VPs of marketing, just really strong voices, really great. But I think that for the most part, it's been men that I've interviewed in that role. So
Mhm.
I like getting a good mix, but I love seeing more women coming up and coming out and kind of talking their stories. It's really great.
It's exciting.
Yeah. So the other thing is you work in cybersecurity, which
Mhm.
I would think would be a really difficult market to work with because of the restrictions and the regulations and the compliance.
Yep.
How do you market to them?
It's hard. All the things you just said make it very, very hard. On top of they're just a super intelligent and savvy audience, right? They
Mm,
know all the tricks. They know all the games. They are not going to give you their information willy-nilly, right? You got to earn it from them. And you have to, the number one thing with cybersecurity, if you want to have success in the space, is to educate, right? The one of the things that it's actually cybersecurity, that audience and the marketing technology audience are very similar in the sense that like only till recently there hasn't been like a school for education for that, right?
yeah,
There's so many different pockets and areas within cybersecurity. A lot of it is just self-interest, self-taught. I like that I got into it and then I fell into it and XYZ. Cybersecurity is a super broad area of study. So there's no like cybersecurity degree. It's
yeah,
like IT or network or cloud or is a bunch of different things
yeah,
all in one. And there's
that's
niches
true.
within the niche. So it's a self-taught audience. There's a ton of tools out there that are promising the sun, the moon, and stars, just like in marketing technology, right? There's very little trust in any of them, right? They know that there's no silver bullet in cybersecurity, and a lot of it is just education. You have to educate, the people outside of the cybersecurity department about cybersecurity, so they know how to protect themselves because that's the biggest risk in a cybersecurity. It doesn't matter what kind of tools you have, or you can have the Fort Knox for your security. But if the secretary clicks on a phishing email, it's a wrap. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? So that that's the biggest thing. So the biggest thing in cybersecurity for the audience is education, right? If you teach them and help them grow in their careers, it's the best way to kind of gain favor.
yeah. So education, does that mean like when you educate people in cybersecurity, what kind of things are you talking to them about? Just the challenges that are happening today, or do you have to teach them about the technology as well?
Yes, both.
Yeah.
So definitely on what's happening today. So like they want to know about threat intel, the latest and greatest in vulnerabilities, what threats are out there right now, so they can stay on top of that. And then you're also definitely teaching about the technology. So all the tools and stuff are different. They have their different areas of focus, right? There's two schools in cybersecurity. So there's prevention and then there's threat detection. So a lot
Mhm.
of people live in the prevention side, right? Like firewalls and just keep stuff out. But that's not realistic in today's society, right? Threats happen all the
Yeah.
time. Look at the news at any time point in time, somebody's getting breached, hacked, something's happening.
Yep.
So we have to be aware in our society that, just having a firewall is not going to be good enough. So you have to focus on threat detection. And once something is in your network or hits your endpoint or actually gets in, you are breached. How do you then find that threat and then remediate it as quickly as possible?
Yeah.
So that's, yeah, teaching them about kind of what's the latest and greatest in threat intel, and then teaching them how to manage the technology so they can remediate these threats as soon as humanly possible.
Yeah. So, okay, here's one of my last questions for you. Obviously, this kind of interests me because That's an industry, cybersecurity, that I would think would be really hard to wrap your head around.
Mm-hmm.
How do you keep yourself how do you keep yourself updated on the strategy and the industry itself,
Mm-hmm.
and keep yourself updated on the marketing technologies that you need to kind of support
Mm-hmm.
teaching and educating your people, your audience, or your customers?
I kind of handle it a little bit backwards. So I focus on studying the audience as much as I can and kind of go where they go. So like one of the things I tell people I like to do is like, and this is for any industry you're in, for any audience you're trying to study, I love a day in the life videos on YouTube.
Oh
It's just
yeah,
like it'll tell, because it's more of like the nuance of, and you get more of like in their voice how they feel about their day and like what's going on. So like when I watch like a network engineer day in the life or something like that, they're normally in a dark room with headphones in front of a computer all day, like trying to, map out a network or do something like this. Like what's the feeling or the mindset of somebody who's isolated for most of the day in a dark room, right? How do you talk to that person? What's their psyche like, right? That's not going to get on a persona doc. They're 35 to 50 and, they like
yeah,
to read this thing. Like
yeah.
I like to get more into like, what is the feeling of that person? Because then that's how you're going to actually get some, you listen with empathy and then be able to talk to their emotions about what you communicate effectively to them about that kind of thing. So that's actually most of what I do. I like to go into Twitter spaces, cybersecurity people, obviously in kind of like networking groups or stuff like that, just to hear about what they're talking about.
Mhm.
Because if I think there's a hot topic, you know what I mean, and then I go into these groups and they're not talking about it, what's the point? They
Right.
don't care, right? So the more I can sort of, infiltrate, these cybersecurity groups and hear from them as most I can, that's really how I stay up to date on what's going on and what they care about, because that's what's most important.
Right. Makes sense. I love that approach, as opposed to just doing a little bit of SEO research and then
Yeah,
just kind of, which is not a bad thing to do
it's not
either,
bad.
but you have to really get into the heads of them. You really kind of go where they go and listen and learn. That's
Mm-hmm.
great.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So then what about the technology? And I would ask this for on behalf of anyone who wants to
Mm-hmm.
become a marketing technologist. Where do you train? Like, are there certain schools, or is there a way to do it that you, because I don't think there are any universities or colleges that train you on marketing or sales technologies, like
Mm-hmm.
as a whole.
No, I don't think so. Not at
Yeah.
all. And the way that I kind of stay up to date on that is twofold. One is a benefit and one is just proactive thing. So I am in different MarTech communities, like different Slack groups and things like that. I think the one benefit that I will give of the MarTech community is they're super welcoming.
Yeah.
They're open arms, like anybody, to reach out to that in the community, like I just asked, can I join this Slack group or can I join your group or whatever? And they've been more than happy to let me in and, sit in and listen to them and talk to them and things like that. So LinkedIn, obviously you're number one for some of these groups, um, MopsCon, any kind of MOPS group. So MOPS is marketing operations, any MarTech group that's active, highly recommended for sure.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is like, as I've gone in my career and spoken around, I've had the benefit of, I hate this word, but being an influencer, I hate the word. But
That's what you
company,
are, right?
yeah, I know.
So you like
Um,
not being a thought leader too, right?
exact, the second worst word ever. But companies reach out to me and I've had the benefit of kind of being a beta for a few groups. So Triblio, back in the day, I was a beta for them when they had an ABM platform. Caliber Mine was an early kind of customer for them. They're a CDP. And there's a few others I'm sure I'm missing, but those two definitely stand out. So
Yeah.
I've had the benefit of sort of, being a tester for some of these companies and giving them feedback and just kind of being able to see ahead of the curve a little bit. So it was a little bit ahead of the curve on ABM. I had a consulting company around ABM before ABM was a thing and people knew that they needed. So that company ended up crashing and burning because people were like, what are you talking about? I don't know what ABM is. So
a few more years, they would have
I
been
missed
set.
it by this much. And then, yeah, I just kind of, the Caliber Mind CDP was maybe 2018 before the pandemic. And now that's a huge thing. So just kind of had the fortunate benefit of, seeing some of these companies in their infancy and being a little bit ahead of the curve.
That's a great way to learn too. Like, wow, to have that kind of opportunity, to have that foresight into what's going on.
Yeah, it's been a wild ride. It's been crazy. Like I said, I kind of like started with MarTech back in 2007. Eloquo, the company that I worked for that had Eloquo, was like customer number 7 of the company. So just been blessed to kind of be in the space early, and it's been a pleasure being in it and watching it grow and hopefully helping it grow and hopefully helping it move forward too.
Yeah, cool. So obviously you probably have spare time, I would assume, but if you're doing all of this, I don't know how much of it you actually have. What do you do in your spare time? There's your last question for the day.
I love to lift weights. I got involved in weightlifting during the pandemic a little bit. So when gym shut down, but like I got a kettlebell set, but now that I go back, my goal is to kind of squat 400 pounds. I'm nowhere near that. I'm about 250 right now.
Holy cow, that's awesome too.
Yeah, I really got into it. So I love to lift weights. I got a dog during the pandemic. His name is Charlie. He's a half lab, half pit. So he takes up a lot of my spare time, but I walk him all the time. Super energetic. I can't wait for him to calm down just a little bit because he is a ball of energy.
Well, he's been quiet the whole time, so that's been pretty impressive.
Yeah, this is nap time. He'll be up in about an hour, ready to go.
That's cool. All right. Well, this has been a really great conversation. I really appreciate you taking the time today. And I encourage everyone to kind of look you up on LinkedIn and kind of see all the stuff that you're doing, because there's so much we can learn from you.
I appreciate that, Barb. Thanks for having me. Yeah, if you go on my LinkedIn, all my socials are just my name. And then on my LinkedIn, I have like my talks and things like that. So I have a YouTube, momartech.com, and you can go look at my previous talks or anything that I had going on in the past. I would love that. And if you have any questions for anybody in the audience and want to talk more about this stuff, I love it. So please reach out.
Sure, great. I'll make sure I link that stuff in the show notes too, so they can get really quick access to it.
Awesome, thank you.
All right, well, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you everyone for listening. We'll see you next month with a new guest.